I'm Valentina Rossi, 32 female. I live in a city that never sleeps, in a small apartment that I've filled with more books than furniture. For the past 6 years, my life has been my work as a senior account manager at Apex Marketing, one of the top agencies in the country. I was good at it, maybe too good. This is the story of how my boss, the queen of delegation and credit stealing, pushed me one step too far. She thought she was just ruining my vacation for her own selfish gain, but what she didn't know was that she was lighting the fuse on a rocket I had been secretly building for months. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The email confirming my 2-week vacation to the Amalfi Coast had been sitting in my inbox for 4 months, a shimmering beacon of hope in a sea of spreadsheets and client reports. It wasn't just a vacation, it was a pilgrimage. My grandmother was born in a small village overlooking Positano, and this trip was meant to reconnect me with a part of my heritage I'd only ever seen in faded photographs. I had saved for 2 years, booked a tiny, charming Airbnb with a lemon tree-land terrace, and my suitcase was already half-packed in my mind. For the first time in my 6-year tenure at Apex Marketing, I was about to be completely, blissfully offline. My dedication to Apex wasn't just a professional choice, it was a core part of my identity. I was the one who came in early, stayed late, and treated every client's business as if it were my own. My portfolio was a collection of the agency's biggest success stories, the most notable being Aura Wellness, a high-end lifestyle brand we had landed 3 years ago. I had built that account from the ground up, nurturing my relationship with its brilliant founder, Julian Croft, until it became the agency's multi-million-dollar crown jewel. My direct superior, Isabella Monet, the head of strategy, saw my success not as a team win, but as a reflection of her own supposed genius. Isabella was a master of appearances. She spoke in a whirlwind of corporate buzzwords, her emails were masterpieces of performative productivity, and she had an almost supernatural ability to materialize at the exact moment a client was signing on the dotted line, positioning herself perfectly for the credit. In meetings I had prepared for all week, she would gracefully intercept a question directed at me, rephrasing my own talking points as if they had just occurred to her. She would add my meticulously researched slides to her own presentations, changing only the font and the name on the title page. For years, I had swallowed my frustration, telling myself it was just the cost of climbing the corporate ladder. I was playing the long game, or so I thought. The vacation was my reward for years of quiet perseverance. The summons came on a Thursday afternoon, the day before my flight. An email from Isabella, subject line, "Urgent sync." My stomach tightened. Urgent, in Isabella's vocabulary, was a red flag, a warning siren that someone else's weekend was about to be sacrificed at the altar of her ambition. I walked into her glass-walled office, a sterile white cube decorated with abstract art and awards that mostly bore her name, though the work behind them was often mine. She was typing furiously, a portrait of immense pressure and importance. She let me stand there for a full minute before looking up, her expression a carefully crafted mask of exhausted gravity. "Val," she began, using the diminutive she knew I disliked, "close the door." I did, the click of the latch echoing in the sudden silence. "I have some difficult news," she said, steepling her fingers. "For the team." I waited. There's been an unexpected development with the Aura Wellness account. A massive, time-sensitive opportunity has landed on our desk. A complete global rebranding initiative. Julian Croft wants to fast-track the entire strategy, and the pitch is due in 10 days. She sighed dramatically. It's huge, a game changer, but the timeline is, well, it's brutal. My heart began to sink, a slow, cold descent into a familiar dread. 10 days, that's my entire vacation. Isabella nodded, her eyes radiating synthetic sympathy. I know. Believe me, I was the first one to push back. I told them it was impossible. I said, My team is already stretched thin, and my lead manager, Valentina, has a well-deserved, once-in-a-lifetime trip planned. She paused, letting the performance hang in the air. But Julian was insistent. He specifically requested you lead the strategic framework. He said, and I quote, "No one understands the Aura brand like Valentina." Of course, he's right. The flattery was a tactical anesthetic, meant to numb the blow she was about to deliver. I could feel the walls of my Amalfi dream closey. NG in, the scent of lemons and sea salt replaced by the stale, recycled air of the office. "What are you saying, Isabella?" I asked, my voice flatter than I intended. "I'm saying I need you," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "The team needs you. I wouldn't ask this of anyone else, Val, but this is an all-hands-on-deck situation. We're talking about securing the Aura account for the next decade. Think of what this means for the agency, for our careers, for your career." My mind raced, scrambling for an escape route. Who else is on the project team? The core strategists, me, you, Daniel, and Mark, will be working around the clock. A war room, takeout, the whole 9 yards. It'll be tough, but we'll get through it together. Daniel and Mark, the two senior strategists who always seem to be on Isabella's side, echoing her opinions and laughing the loudest at her jokes. The A-team, as she called them. I thought of my non-refundable Airbnb, the train tickets from Naples to Positano, the cooking class I had booked. I thought of my grandmother's stories, the promise I had made to myself. All of it was turning to smoke. The worst part was the insidious seed of guilt she was planting. If I said no, I wasn't a team player. I was selfish. I was letting everyone down. She had framed it perfectly. My flight is tomorrow morning," I stammered, the words feeling useless. "I know how much you'll be giving up," Isabella said, reaching across her desk to place a cold hand on my arm. It was meant to be a gesture of solidarity, but it felt like a brand. "And the company will recognize it. A significant bonus will be attached to this project's success. And of course, we'll reimburse you for any non-refundable travel costs. Just send the receipts to HR." The bonus was a familiar carrot, dangled many times but rarely delivered as promised. The reimbursement was a pittance, an insult to the personal cost of what she was asking. She wasn't just taking my money, she was taking my time, my dream, my connection to my family. I looked at her, at the feigned sincerity in her eyes, and felt a profound sense of exhaustion. I had fought this battle in smaller ways for years, and I had always relented. I had always chosen the path of the good soldier, the dependable employee. This time felt different, a larger, more egregious violation, but the mechanism of manipulation was the same. A part of me, a weary, defeated part, just didn't have the energy to fight. I pulled my arm away gently and stood up straight, my shoulders tight with unspoken resentment. "Okay," I said, the word tasting like ash. "I'll cancel my trip." A brilliant, triumphant smile flickered across her face before being instantly replaced by her somber mask. "Thank you, Valentina. I knew I could count on you. You're putting the team first. That's what makes you a leader." I walked out of her office without another word. Back at my desk, surrounded by the cheerful "have a great trip" sticky notes from my colleagues, I pulled up my email. I stared at the cursor blinking in the body of a new message. My fingers felt like lead as I typed out the cancellation notice to the sweet Italian woman who owned the Airbnb. Then, I opened my team chat. I saw the group channel with Isabella, Daniel, and Mark. My final act of surrender was a short, simple message, sent for all of them to see. Just canceled my vacation plans, ready to get started on the Aura pitch. Of course, team first. Isabella replied almost instantly with a single emoji, a flexed bicep. I shut down my computer, packed my bag, and walked out into the city night, feeling a hollowness that no bonus could ever hope to fill. The first 24 hours of my non-vacation were a study in surreal deflation. I woke up on Friday morning at the exact time I was supposed to be boarding my flight to Naples. Instead of the excited hum of an airport terminal, my apartment was silent. The only sound was the faint traffic noise from the street below. My packed suitcase stood by the door like a tombstone, marking the death of my travel plans. I spent the morning in a grim, administrative haze, officially canceling flights, train tickets, and the cooking class. Each confirmation email felt like a tiny nail in a coffin. I emailed Isabella, asking for the initial project brief for the Aura Wellness rebranding. "Let's hit the ground running," I wrote, trying to project an enthusiasm I absolutely did not feel. Her reply was breezy and vague. "Just landed, crazy flight. We'll send you the preliminary files by end of day. For now, just start pulling together your past research on Aura's market position. A good refresher is always a great starting point. Talk soon." Just landed, I thought. Where had she gone? She made it sound like they were setting up a command center in a different city. It was odd, but I dismissed it. My task was clear. I spent the rest of Friday buried in old reports, market analyses, and brand audits I had authored myself. It felt less like starting a new project and more like rereading my own diary. By 6 p.m., there was still no brief from Isabella. I messaged the group chat. "Hey team, just checking in. Eager to see the brief when it's ready. Let me know if I can help with anything else in the meantime." Crickets, no reply from Isabella, Daniel, or Mark. Saturday was more of the same. I woke up with a phantom feeling of sunshine on my skin, the imagined scent of salt and lemons quickly fading as I remembered where I was. I emailed Isabella again. "Hope you're all settled in," following up on the brief. This time, a reply came hours later. "Hey, things are manic here. We're in deep strategic sessions. The brief is still evolving. We'll loop you in as soon as the core framework is locked. Your research will be crucial then. Keep digging." The vagueness was starting to feel less like professional chaos and more like intentional obfuscation. What kind of pitch leader keeps their lead strategist completely in the dark for 2 days? Why wouldn't she want my input during these supposed deep strategic sessions? A knot of suspicion began to form in my gut. I called Marcus Thorne, the agency's lead data analyst and one of the few people at Apex I considered a genuine friend. "Hey, Tino," he answered, using his nickname for me. "Shouldn't you be sipping limoncello on a cliff somewhere?" "Change of plans," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Massive last-minute project for Aura Wellness." "Oh, that thing," he said. "Yeah, Isabella sent a vague email to the department heads about a strategic opportunity. No one knows what it is. Seemed weird." "Did she say where they were working from?" I asked. "No, just that she and the A-team were going off-site to focus without distractions." "Good luck with that. You know how those sessions go. A lot of talk, one slide of actual content, and a huge dinner receipt to expense." We chatted for a few more minutes before hanging up. Off-site! The word echoed in my mind. It could mean anything, a rented conference room, a hotel downtown. But coupled with the lack of communication, it felt wrong. The discovery happened on Sunday afternoon. I was aimlessly scrolling through my phone, a mindless ritual to numb the crushing boredom and disappointment. I was tapping through Instagram stories when a new one popped up. It was from a junior designer at the agency, a sweet girl named Chloe who was barely a year out of college. Her first story was a picture of her cat. Her second was a boomerang of a cocktail, clinking against another glass. The caption read, "Living the dream." Sun, in the background out of focus, was a stunning aquamarine pool and a sliver of a white sand beach. My thumb froze. The location tag at the top of the screen read, "The Serenity Key Resort and Spa, Florida." My blood ran cold. The Serenity Key was a notoriously exclusive, outrageously expensive resort. It wasn't a place you went for a war room or a deep strategic session. It was where CEOs went to unplug. I clicked back to Chloe's profile. She had posted a photo to her grid an hour ago. It was a group shot. And there they were. Isabella, front and center, wearing a flowing white caftan and oversized sunglasses, a triumphant smirk on her face. Next to her were Daniel and Mark, both in linen shirts, holding beers and grinning from ear to ear. Several other senior members of Isabella's inner circle were there, all looking relaxed, tanned, and utterly untroubled by any impending deadlines. The caption, penned by Chloe, was sickeningly cheerful. "So grateful to our amazing boss Isabella for treating the team to a surprise retreat. The A-team deserves it. Work hard, play hard, Apexperks blessed." I stared at the photo, my vision tunneling until all I could see was Isabella's smug face. The lie was so audacious, so complete, it was almost breathtaking. There was no project. There was no urgent deadline. There was no all-hands-on-deck war room. There was only a luxury vacation, a reward for her favorites, funded by the company. She hadn't just asked me to cancel my vacation. She had stolen it. She had taken my dream of the Amalfi Coast, my connection to my grandmother, my hard-earned time off, and used it to fund her own getaway. She needed me out of the way, stuck at home, so that I wouldn't be in the office to question why the entire senior strategy team was MIA. My presence, my very existence, was an inconvenience to her lie. My, of course, team first message, which she had probably shared with the group to a round of laughter, was the final piece of her puzzle. It was my official consent to my own deception. I zoomed in on the photo, my hand shaking with a rage so pure and cold it felt like ice water flooding my veins. I saw their laughing faces, the clear blue sky, the palm trees swaying in the breeze. They had used my sacrifice as the foundation for their party. The sense of betrayal was absolute, a physical blow that knocked the air from my lungs. I felt a wave of nausea, followed by a clarity so sharp it was painful. For years, I had made excuses for her. I had told myself this was just business, that this was how the game was played. I had been a fool. This wasn't business. This was personal. This was a calculated, malicious act of disrespect. I stood up and walked to my window, staring down at the city streets. The simmering resentment I had suppressed for 6 years was no longer simmering. It was boiling over, scalding away every last ounce of my loyalty and patience. The hollow feeling of the past 2 days was gone, replaced by something new. It was a hard, dense, and powerful feeling. It was resolve. She thought she had played me. She thought I was sitting in my apartment, diligently refreshing my email, waiting for a fake brief. She thought I was a pawn. She had no idea that her little resort picture had just handed me the checkmate. My mind began to work, not on the fake Aura wellness pitch, but on a very real, very different kind of strategy. My trip to the Amalfi Coast was gone, but a new destination had just appeared on my map: revenge. And I was going to be the one sending the postcards. The rage that solidified in my chest that Sunday afternoon was a powerful engine, but an engine with no road is just noise. I needed a plan, a strategy more brilliant and devastating than anything I had ever designed for a client. As I paced my small apartment, the image of Isabella's smirking face at the resort burned in my mind. But beneath the anger, a deeper, more strategic part of my brain was booting up. It was the part of me that Julian Croft, the CEO of Aura Wellness, had come to value so highly. My relationship with Julian had always been the outlier at Apex. It was a partnership that existed almost entirely outside of Isabella's sphere of influence. It had started 3 years prior when Aura Wellness was just a promising startup. I was a mid-level manager then, and Isabella had thrown the small, unglamorous account my way, seeing it as beneath her. "See if you can make something of it, Val," she had said dismissively. I took the challenge. I saw the potential in Julian's vision for a wellness brand that was authentic, scientifically grounded, and beautiful. I worked tirelessly, not just managing the account, but becoming a true strategic partner. I didn't just execute his ideas, I brought him new ones. We launched campaigns that were unconventional, data-driven, and wildly successful. Aura Wellness exploded. And as it grew into a multi-million-dollar account, Isabella's interest suddenly peaked. She began inserting herself into our calls, rebranding my successes as her strategic oversight. Julian, however, was no fool. He was a shrewd, observant man who had built his empire by reading people. He saw exactly what was happening. About a year ago, our professional relationship had shifted into something more confidential. It began after a particularly frustrating meeting where Isabella had bulldozed one of my key proposals, only to repitch a watered-down version of it as her own a week later. That evening, I received an email from Julian to my personal address. The subject line was simply, "A thought." He wrote that he was endlessly impressed with my work, but increasingly frustrated with the agency's bureaucracy and exorbitant overhead. "I feel like I am paying a premium for a VP's salary and a fancy office, when the real value is coming directly from you, Valentina," he had written. "I have a small, discreet side project, a market analysis for a potential brand extension. It's too nascent for a full agency brief. Would you be open to consulting on it, personally, as a freelancer?" My heart had hammered in my chest as I read the email. It was a flagrant breach of my employment contract. If Isabella ever found out, I'd be fired on the spot. But the offer was more than just a chance to earn extra money. It was validation. It was a lifeline of respect in an environment where I was constantly being undermined. I took a deep breath and wrote back, "I'd be honored, Julian. Let's talk." Our secret partnership began. We communicated through encrypted apps and personal emails. I worked on his side projects during my evenings and weekends. It was exhausting, but it was also exhilarating. Freed from the constraints of Isabella's meddling, my work flourished. I gave him raw, unfiltered strategic advice. I built him data models that were lean and brutally effective. He paid me generously, but the real compensation was his trust. During our late-night calls, the conversation often drifted from business strategy to the frustrations that necessitated our arrangement. He would vent about Apex's bloated invoices and lack of agility. "I'm paying for a team of 10, but I'm only getting the brain of one," he once lamented. I was more guarded, careful not to sound unprofessional. But over time, I began to open up. I shared my frustration with having my ideas stifled with the toxic culture of credit stealing that Isabella fostered. I never named her directly as a malicious actor, but I didn't have to. Julian could read between the lines. The seed of my eventual revenge was planted by Julian himself about 6 months before the disastrous vacation incident. We were on a video call, discussing the phenomenal success of a campaign I had designed for him entirely on the side. He was ecstatic. "Valentina, this is brilliant," he said, leaning into his camera. "This one freelance project has yielded a better ROI than the last 6 months of my official agency retainer. It's absurd." He paused, his expression turning serious. "Have you ever thought about going out on your own?" The question hung in the air, electric. I don't know," I admitted. "The risk, the overhead, it's a big leap." "Is it?" he countered. "What overhead? You don't need a fancy office on Park Avenue. You don't need a team of overpaid executives. You need a laptop, a phone, and that brain of yours. The world has changed. The agency model is a dinosaur. What you do, this lean, data-driven, direct-to-expert model, that's the future." He let the idea sink in. "I'm just going to say this once, so listen carefully. If you ever were to start your own agency, Aura Wellness would come with you. I would sign the contract the day you opened your doors. You have my word." I was stunned. This wasn't just a compliment, it was a concrete business proposition. It was an escape hatch I never knew existed. The idea was terrifying, but it was also a spark. For the next few months, it remained just that, a spark of a distant possibility. A what-if to daydream about after a particularly demoralizing day at work. I was too cautious, too ingrained in the system to seriously consider it. But now, sitting in my apartment, staring at the Instagram photo of Isabella's betrayal, the spark ignited into a raging fire. Julian's offer wasn't a daydream anymore. It was the blueprint for my revenge. It was the ultimate leverage. Isabella thought Aura Wellness was her client to control, her cash cow to milk. She had no idea that my relationship with the client was deeper, stronger, and more real than hers would ever be. She thought she was the master puppeteer, but the CEO of her largest client had already secretly handed me the strings. My fury from discovering the lie now had a clear direction. This wouldn't be a petty complaint to HR. It wouldn't be a dramatic confrontation. It would be a clinical, devastating, and silent corporate decapitation. She had lied about an urgent project for Aura Wellness. The irony was exquisite. The real urgent project for Aura Wellness was about to begin, and she wasn't even invited to the meeting. I pulled out my personal laptop, opened an encrypted messaging app, and typed a message to Julian Croft. "Julian, something has happened. Do you have time for a secure call tonight? I've decided to take your advice. It's time to build the future." His reply came back in less than a minute. "I've been waiting for this call. Name the time." The secure video call with Julian Croft that Sunday night was the official declaration of war. I laid everything out for him. Isabella's fabricated deadline, my canceled trip, the lie about a war room, and the damning evidence of the resort photos. I was professional and factual, but my voice was tight with the cold fury of it all. Julian listened intently, his expression hardening with every detail. When I finished, he was silent for a moment, his disgust palpable even through the screen. "That woman has the strategic foresight of a garden gnome," he said, his voice laced with contempt. "To risk her relationship with you, the sole reason my account is still with that circus, for a poolside party, it's not just insulting, Valentina. It's catastrophically stupid." "I'm done making excuses for her," I said. "I'm done playing their game. You made me an offer 6 months ago. If it still stands, I'm ready." "It more than stands," he said, a grim smile touching his lips. "It's the best damn business decision I'll make all year. So, what's the plan? What do you need from me?" "For now, nothing but your continued silence," I replied. "Let them enjoy their vacation. I'm going to use the next 7 days, the time I'm supposed to be working on their fake project, to build a real company. And when they get back, we pull the plug." "I love it," he said. "Poetic justice. Let me know what you decide to call your new venture. My legal team will need it to draft the service agreement." The first and most crucial step in building my ghost agency was to secure my own A-team. There was only one person at Apex I trusted implicitly: Marcus Thorne. Marcus was the agency's lead data analyst, a quiet genius who could make spreadsheets sing and find narrative in raw numbers. No one else. He was also, like me, perpetually overlooked by Isabella, who found his methodical, evidence-based approach to be a tedious obstacle to her gut-feel proclamations. I called him the next morning. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about something big, and it needs to be completely off the record. Can you meet for coffee?" We met at a small, independent coffee shop miles away from the office. I told him the entire story, just as I had with Julian. As he listened, his usual calm demeanor cracked, his eyes widening in disbelief and then narrowing in anger. "I knew she was a snake, but this is a whole other level," he said, shaking his head. "They're expensing that entire resort trip, aren't they? Classifying it as client development or some other nonsense." "Of course," I said. "But I'm not going to HR, Marcus. I'm starting my own agency. And Julian Croft is bringing Aura Wellness with him. I want you to be my partner." Marcus stared at me, speechless. He took a long sip of his coffee. He was a cautious man, a planner who calculated risk for a living. I saw the gears turning in his head, weighing the stability of his paycheck against the promise of a future he could control. "She's been burying my reports for months," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Every time my data contradicts her narrative, it vanishes. She called my last market analysis academically interesting but strategically irrelevant. 2 months later, the client it was about pulled their account, citing the exact issues I had flagged." He looked up at me, a fire in his eyes I'd never seen before. "Okay, I'm in. What do we call this crazy thing?" "I was thinking Vantage Point Media," I said, "because we offer a clearer perspective." He smiled for the first time. "I like it. It's a direct shot at their blindness." For the next 6 days, my apartment transformed into the covert headquarters of Vantage Point Media. It was the most intense, exhilarating, and terrifying week of my life. While Isabella and her cronies were sipping mojitos, Marcus and I were building an empire on a shoestring budget and a torrent of caffeine. Our division of labor was natural. I handled the business and legal framework. My evenings were a blur of online legal services, registering Vantage Point Media LLC, securing the domain name, and setting up a business bank account. I used a portion of my savings, the money I had set aside for Italy, as our initial operating capital. It felt like a righteous reinvestment. I drafted a lean, aggressive, and transparent standard client contract with the help of a freelance lawyer I found online. Every clause was a direct response to the bloat and ambiguity of Apex's contracts. Meanwhile, Marcus was our technological architect. He set up encrypted cloud storage, a secure communication platform, and a project management system. He began migrating the anonymized, non-proprietary data models and analytical frameworks he had built over the years, his own intellectual property, which Apex had never properly valued. Together, we worked on our pitch. This wasn't a pitch to win a client. This was the onboarding presentation for a client we already had. It was a 100-day action plan for Aura Wellness under Vantage Points management. Marcus built a stunning dashboard that showed, in real time, how our leaner model would reallocate nearly 40% of their current agency fees from administrative overhead directly into media spend and creative development, projecting a massive increase in ROI. My strategy section was a bold, innovative roadmap for the brand's future, filled with the ideas Isabella had dismissed as too risky or unconventional. It was the best work of my career. By Saturday, 1 week after the discovery, Vantage Point Media was no longer a ghost. It was a real, functioning entity. We had a legal identity, a bank account, a signed contract from our first client sitting in escrow with Julian's lawyers, and a brilliant strategic plan ready for execution. The only thing we didn't have was an office, but we had decided to start fully remote, a further testament to our lean and modern approach. That night, I received a message from Isabella on the team chat. It was the first direct communication I'd had from her in a week. "Hope you've made good progress on the preliminary research. We're back on Monday. Let's sync first thing, 9 a.m. We have a lot to brief you on." I looked at the message, then at Marcus, who was sitting across from my kitchen table, finalizing our presentation. A slow smile spread across my face. "Oh, we'll be ready for a briefing, all right," I said. I typed my reply, keeping my tone as neutral and obedient as ever. "Sounds great, see you Monday." The Sunday before my scheduled return to the office was the calm before the storm. The ghost agency was fully materialized, the pieces were in place, and all that remained was the execution. Marcus and I spent the day doing a final run-through of our 100-day plan for Aura Wellness, refining every detail until it was flawless. There was a nervous energy in the air, a mixture of anticipation and sheer terror. We were about to jump off a cliff, trusting that the parachute we had stitched together in a week would actually open. That evening, Julian Croft and I had one last secure call. "The contract is signed, and with my legal team," he confirmed, his voice steady and reassuring. "They are instructed to terminate our agreement with Apex Marketing first thing tomorrow morning, citing the key person clause. Since you are no longer with the agency, we are exercising our right to dissolve the partnership. It's clean, it's legal, and it's irreversible." The key person clause. A standard piece of boilerplate in most major client contracts, and one I knew for a fact was in the Aura Wellness agreement. It stated that if the primary individual responsible for the account, me, were to leave the agency, the client had the right to terminate. It was a contractual shield, and we were about to use it as a sword. "Valentina," Julian said, his tone softening, "are you ready for this? There's no going back after tomorrow." I took a deep breath, looking around my apartment, the nerve center of my rebellion. My Amalfi Coast guidebook was still sitting on my coffee table. I picked it up, ran my thumb over the glossy cover, and then placed it on a bookshelf. That dream was over. It was time for a new one. "I'm ready," I said, my voice clear and firm. It's time they saw what a real strategy looks like. After the call, I began to draft the emails. There were two of them, each a precision-engineered weapon designed for a specific target. The first was my resignation, addressed to Isabella and carbon-copied to the head of human resources. For all the drama and betrayal, the email itself had to be impeccably professional. I had learned from Isabella that the most devastating moves are often the quietest. Subject: Resignation, Valentina Rossi. Dear Isabella, please accept this email as formal notification that I am resigning from my position as Senior Account Manager at Apex Marketing, effective immediately. I have appreciated the opportunity to work here for the past 6 years, and I wish you and the agency all the best in the future. Sincerely, Valentina Rossi. It was short, cold, and offered no room for negotiation or discussion. Effective immediately was the critical phrase. It meant there would be no 2-week notice period for her to try and salvage the situation, no exit interview for her to spin a false narrative. I would simply be gone. The second email was the real declaration of independence. I logged into the brand new email account for Vantage Point Media. The signature was simple but powerful. Valentina Rossi, founder and CEO, Vantage Point Media. A new perspective on growth. This email was a press release, an announcement to the world. The recipient list was carefully curated. It included key industry journalists, a handful of trusted former colleagues, and a few strategic contacts at companies I hope to work with in the future. It was also designed to be screenshot and shared, a perfect little bomb to be dropped on professional networks like LinkedIn. Subject: Introducing Vantage Point Media, a new agency for a new era. Today, I am thrilled to announce the launch of my new venture, Vantage Point Media. After many successful years in the marketing industry, I saw a clear and urgent need for a new kind of agency, one that replaces bureaucracy with agility, overhead with investment, and ambiguity with data-driven clarity. Vantage Point Media is built on a foundation of true partnership and transparent results. We are proud to begin this journey with our foundational client, Aura Wellness, a brand that exemplifies innovation and authenticity. We look forward to partnering with their team to continue building their remarkable success story. A new perspective is here. We invite you to see the future with us. I attached our sleek, one-page website link. Marcus had designed a simple but elegant landing page with our logo, our mission statement, and a single, powerful testimonial from Julian Croft himself. I looked at the 2 drafted emails sitting in my outbox. One was an ending, the other a beginning. Together, they were the 2-part finale to my career at Apex and the prologue to my new life. Marcus had gone home a few hours earlier. I was alone in the quiet of my apartment. It was just after midnight, officially Monday morning. The day Isabella and her team were due to fly home. I imagined them at the airport, tired from their trip, feeling smug and self-satisfied, completely oblivious to the corporate earthquake that was about to rupture beneath their feet. My finger hovered over the send button on my resignation email. This was the point of no return. 1,000 what-ifs screamed in my head. What if I failed? What if this was a colo? SL mistake. Then I thought of her face in that Instagram photo. The casual cruelty of the lie, the utter disrespect, the belief that I was so insignificant I could be swept aside for her own convenience. The doubt vanished, replaced by the same cold, hard resolve I had felt a week ago. I was not insignificant. I was the one who held all the cards. She just didn't know it yet. I took one final, deep breath. And then I clicked send. Immediately after, I sent the second email, the announcement from Vantage Point Media. Then I turned to LinkedIn and posted a modified version of the announcement. The shots were fired. The trap was set. All I had to do now was wait for the alert. Isabella Monet loved airports. She loved the performative hustle of striding through the terminal, phone pressed to her ear, a rolling suitcase trailing behind her like an exclamation point. It made her feel important, a global player returning from a strategic conquest. As she settled into her business class seat for the flight home from Florida, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The trip had been a resounding success. Her team was happy, loyal, and sun-kissed. She had successfully dodged any prying questions from the grunts back at the office by preemptively benching Valentina, the one person with the seniority and insight to question a week-long absence of the entire strategy leadership. She scrolled through the photos on her phone, smiling at the group shots. They'd have to be careful which ones they posted publicly, of course. But the memories were delightful. The entire trip had been expensed under Project Minerva, a slush fund code she used for discretionary team building. It was a perfect, victimless crime. She'd even remembered to message Valentina to set up a 9 a.m. meeting. The poor girl had probably spent the whole week chained to her desk, churning out research they'd never even look at. Isabella felt a small, pleasant pang of pity. It was a shame, but sacrifices had to be made for the greater good, which, in this case, was her own relaxation. The plane landed, and as it taxied to the gate, Isabella switched her phone off airplane mode. The notifications began to flood in, a familiar cascade of emails, texts, and app alerts. She sifted through them with practiced indifference. The first one that caught her eye was the email from Valentina. Subject: resignation. Isabella's eyebrows shot up. She read the short, sterile message, effective immediately. Annoying, but not a disaster. In fact, it was probably for the best. Valentina had been getting a little too big for her boots lately, a little too proprietary over the Aura Wellness account. This solved a problem. She could promote Daniel into the lead role. He was far more pliable. Good riddance, she muttered to herself, already archiving the email. She was scrolling through a dozen less important messages when the next alert came in. It wasn't an email. It was a high-priority system notification from the agency's integrated client management software. These alerts were rare, reserved only for major account changes. Alert: client contract status change. Client Aura Wellness. Status terminated. Isabella stared at the screen, her brain refusing to process the words. Terminated. It had to be a glitch, a system error. She immediately tried to call Julian Croft. The call went straight to his voicemail, which was unusual. He always picked up for her. A cold knot of dread began to form in her stomach. She frantically searched her inbox for any message from Julian. There it was. An email sent at 9:01 a.m. The subject line was chillingly simple: contract termination. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The email was from Aura Wellness's chief legal officer. Dear Ms. Monet, as per Section 11B of our service agreement, the key person clause, we are hereby providing written notice of our immediate termination of the contract between Aura Wellness and Apex Marketing. This decision is based on the departure of the designated key person for our account, Ms. Valentina Rossi. All further communications should be directed to our legal department. We wish Apex Marketing the best in its future endeavors. Isabella's world tilted on its axis. The words swam before her eyes: the departure of Ms. Valentina Rossi. She toggled back to Valentina's resignation email, reading it again, then back to the termination letter. The two events, separated by minutes, were inextricably linked. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a coordinated attack. A wave of panic, hot and suffocating, washed over her. The Aura Wellness account was worth over $10 million a year in revenue. It was the flagship account of the entire agency. It was her account. Losing it wasn't just a setback, it was a career-ending catastrophe. Her boss, the CEO of Apex, would be waiting for her with a guillotine. Her phone buzzed again. It was a text from Mark. Have you seen your email? What the hell? L is going on with Aura. Then another from Daniel. My phone is blowing up. Everyone is asking about Aura. Call me. She ignored them, her mind racing, trying to piece together the impossible. Valentina had quit, and somehow Julian Croft knew about it within minutes and had a termination letter locked and loaded. How? Why? Then the final notification came in. It wasn't an email or a text. It was from LinkedIn. Congratulate Valentina Rossi on her new role, founder and CEO at Vantage Point Media. Isabella's thumb, slick with sweat, fumbled to open the app. And there it was, a public post. A picture of Valentina, looking not tired and overworked, but powerful, confident, and serene. And the announcement, the one that would be ricocheting through their entire industry by now. Proud to begin this journey with our foundational client, Aura Wellness. The air left Isabella's lungs. It was a coup, a brilliantly executed, ruthlessly efficient corporate coup. Valentina hadn't just quit, she had defected, and she had taken the crown jewels with her. The lie, her perfect, harmless lie about the vacation, had been the trigger. She had pushed Valentina out the door and straight into the arms of her most valuable client. The week she had spent lounging by the pool, Valentina had been building a missile aimed directly at her. The team-first message, the obedient replies, it was all a smokescreen. The other passengers were deplaning, but Isabella sat frozen in her seat, the phone clutched in her hand like a dead weight. The smug satisfaction of her trip had curdled into abject horror. She could already hear the whispers in the office, feel the judgmental stares. She, Isabella Monet, the master strategist, had been outmaneuvered, outplayed, and utterly humiliated. She had stolen Valentina's 2-week vacation. And in return, Valentina had stolen her entire future. The alert on her phone wasn't just a notification, it was the sound of her own career flatlining. Monday morning, the day my vacation was supposed to end, the day I was scheduled for a 9 a.m. briefing with Isabella. I was awake before the sun, but for the first time in a long time, it wasn't from anxiety. It was from adrenaline. There was no dread, no sinking feeling in my stomach. Instead, there was a quiet, humming energy, a sense of profound and thrilling purpose. I wasn't in my stuffy cubicle at Apex Marketing. I was sitting at a simple white desk in the corner of my own living room, which now served as the official world headquarters of Vantage Point Media. Marcus was on the other side of the room at a makeshift second desk, a fresh pot of coffee brewing between us. The sky outside my window was beginning to blush with the pale pinks and oranges of dawn. It was the sunrise on the first day of the rest of my life. At 9:01 a.m., my personal phone, which I had silenced, began to vibrate uncontrollably on the desk. A cascade of texts and missed calls. I glanced at the screen. Mark, Daniel, other colleagues from Apex. Then, a string of 5 missed calls from Isabella Monet. I let it buzz, a faint, satisfying tremor against the wood. The first ripples are hitting the shore, Marcus said, not looking up from his laptop. He was monitoring the industry chatter online. Your LinkedIn post has over 500 likes. A reporter from Adweek just followed you. At 9:30 a.m., we held our first official client meeting. It was a video call with Julian Croft and his core marketing team. There were no false pleasantries, no corporate posturing. It was focused, efficient, and electrifying. We presented our 100-day plan, the one forged in the crucible of my stolen vacation. Marcus walked them through the data dashboard, showcasing the immediate financial and strategic benefits of our partnership. I laid out the bold new creative campaigns. Julian's team was energized. They asked sharp, insightful questions. They were engaged in a way I had never seen them during the bloated, meandering meetings led by Isabella. We weren't just a vendor, we were a part of their team. This is what I've been asking for years, Julian said at the end of the call, a look of genuine excitement on his face. Clarity, agility, a real partnership. Welcome aboard, Vantage Point. Let's get to work. As the call ended, a final text came through to my phone. It was from Chloe, the junior designer whose Instagram story had unknowingly started it all. OMG Valentina, the office is in absolute chaos. Isabella is in the CEO's office with the door closed, and we can hear yelling all the way down the hall. No one knows what's happening, but everyone is talking about you and Aura. Did you really start your own company? That is so amazing. Congratulations. I read the message and smiled. I imagined the scene at Apex, the confusion, the panic, the frantic scramble as the lie unraveled, and the consequences hit them with the force of a tidal wave. I felt a flicker of satisfaction, but it was surprising. Angli fleeting. The intense, burning need for revenge that had fueled me for the past week was already beginning to fade, replaced by something much better. It was the deep, quiet confidence of being in control of my own destiny. The best revenge wasn't the chaos I had created in my wake. It was the peace I was building for my future. It was the respect of my partner, the trust of my client, and the freedom to do the work I loved on my own terms. Later that afternoon, I opened my laptop and booked a flight. It wasn't to the Amalfi Coast. Not yet. It was a short domestic flight to meet with Julian and his team in person to officially kick off our new partnership. But as I clicked confirm, I also opened a new browser tab and searched for that little airbnb with the lemon tree-lined terrace in Positano. I booked it for the following spring. This time, there would be no last-minute cancellations. It would be a celebration.